Salutations, weary travelers. Blue Spice Bear enthusiast here. Today we'll be discussing our Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is probably one of the most debated amendments in America today. There are people that are either for or against the Second Amendment. So with that being said, I'll be discussing why the Second Amendment is important and why we need to keep it. Now, before we get started, for those of you unaware of the Second Amendment, I'll be going ahead and telling you the amendment quote for quote. So I quote, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed," end quote. If you're unaware of what that means, it basically means this. We have the right to own firearms. We have this right to protect ourselves and others, whether that be from a tyrannical government or for the common street thug looking to do us harm. One of the suggestions is that we hold a gun buyback like what Australia did. First and foremost, our government does hold buybacks, but no mandatory gun buybacks, which is what Australia did. Australia held a mandatory gun buyback that required their citizens to give up their firearms. Now, they are capable of doing this because the government already had a registry of the gun owners. The United States does not have this. Besides that, if our government demanded that we have a proper registry where the government knows who owns what, it still wouldn't solve any gun-related crimes, which, as previously stated, criminals aren't going to give up their firearms. They most certainly aren't going to register their firearms. On top of all this, the gun-related crimes that go on in Australia, there was no noticeable change in statistics relating to gun crimes. One of the more extreme arguments is that we need to completely remove the Second Amendment, and by doing so we can all be safer. This type of narrative is extremely dangerous. You see, many people believe that if we ban all guns, then we'll be safer. But this is simply not the case. Take Chicago, for example, a city that I live in. We have some of the most strict gun laws in the entirety of the USA, and this city is one of the most crime and gang infested out of all the other cities. Taking away the Second Amendment isn't going to make this any better. It is not the law-abiding gun owners that people need to be afraid of. It's the individuals who are illegally possessing and using firearms that we need to fear and put a stop to. Removing the Second Amendment won't stop them. It will only allow them to commit more crime, knowing that no one can stop them. Every single year, around 400,000 lives are saved using firearms in self-defense, and that isn't even including simply brandishing or showing a firearm to deter an attacker. Approximately 270 million civilians own firearms in America. Each year, 200,000 women use firearms to defend themselves against sexual abuse. 3 out of 5 felons say that they are less likely to attack someone that they know or think is armed. 88.8 out of 100 US citizens are likely to own a firearm. We have the highest gun ownership per citizen in the world, and yet our homicide rate is only 103 in the world. The FBI did a study and found that concealed carry stops 8.5% of murders, 5% of rapes, 7% of aggravated assault, and 3% of robberies. In 1982, Kennesaw, Georgia passed a law requiring heads of households to keep at least one firearm in the house. The residential burglary rate dropped by 89% after this law was passed. The idea that banning guns save lives is incredibly naive, as the individuals protesting and calling for the removal of the Second Amendment don't understand guns. They don't understand guns. They don't understand the gun laws. They don't understand the responsibility of owning a firearm. There are a few instances of people saying that we need to have a way of ensuring that criminals or questionable individuals cannot obtain firearms, which is something that we already have. Gun shops are required to run a background check on you before you're allowed to purchase a firearm. So if you are a convicted felon, you cannot obtain a firearm. If you cannot obtain a firearm if you're a domestic abuser, mentally unfit, etc. There are certain procedures set in place to help ensure that only responsible and safe citizens can, in fact, purchase a firearm. So there was a discussion that me and my buddies had on some of our recent podcasts. We discussed all these debates, and one thing that we agreed on that people can do, or that should be almost mandated, is first-time gun owners should take a class on how to responsibly handle and use their firearm. So much like a concealed carry license where you have to take a class or several classes to obtain said license, it would basically be the same thing for obtaining your first firearm, and then after that, of course, you don't really have to do it. So this is something that I can personally get behind, because not only is it going to help ensure that you know how to handle and operate your firearm responsibly, It also helps ensure that you keep those around you safe. With that being said, there are plenty of other debates and suggestions in regard to guns, gun control, and the Second Amendment. In the future, I can go into more depth discussing this topic, but for now, I'll leave it here. I've recently opened up and finished my new Discord. The link is in the description. You're more than welcome to join. If you have the intention on discussing what was going on in this video in the comments below, then please keep the conversation as civil and respectful to one another as possible. In the near future, I'll likely be covering the Fourth Amendment, so I'll be skipping over the Third Amendment. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, then please feel free to comment below, DM me on Discord or Twitter, or even write me an email. Thank you for watching, and have a lovely day.
Yeah.